Good everyone, today's video, and today it's a bit of an unusual one. Today we're going to be covering lineups that I believe, in my personal opinion, are rather relaxing to play. Obviously, this is mainly targeted towards mainly veterans and also newer players who maybe they've had a bad day at the office in War Thunder and they want to relax a bit. So they want to take some vehicles out that they really don't care about, are very cheap to repair if they are destroyed, and that they don't really pay attention to and are not bothered about their actual stats in the thing. To be honest, like a lot of veteran players tend to care about their stats, but these lineups are not meant to care about them. This is simply meant to just calm down with, have a nice, relaxing session, and not stress about any high tier stuff. So I'm going to be trying to limit the premiums out of these. I really don't want to include premiums unless absolutely necessary. And even then, there will most likely be cheap premiums that you can get for just a couple of quid or something like that. So starting out with lineup number one, we're going up to Sweden 1.3. So we have the Stridsvagn M31, the Stridsvagn M38, the PV FM42, the premium Stridsvagn M39, and the B-17B dive bomber, even though you can use it as a fighter as well. This lineup actually works really well because you've got good versatility. You've got a tank. You've basically got another tank destroyer if you need to, which is the M42. But even though the gun elevation is quite limited, you can still get your gun up to shoot up at planes coming in low. And obviously the B-17B will be more than adequate to do this. I've waited for this patch to actually do this video, so you can sort of understand why, if I've mentioned it on the Discord a couple of times, this is why, because I wanted to wait for Sweden. So, lineup number two is France 3.3. Now, I know what you're thinking, why the bloody hell have you chosen this thing, the P70AA Tractor? For pure and simple reasons, because this thing actually does a better AA job, in my personal opinion, than the CCKW 353, the anti-aircraft truck with the Bofors. Now, if you're looking for more anti-tank based AA, you're going to want to go with the CCKW. But for more general shooting down planes, I find these 13.2s to be extremely effective. And with 24mm of penetration, you're going to be cutting planes out of the sky quite easily. Now, you do only have 120 rounds, I believe it. Oh, sorry, I think it's 120 rounds in total, like between the four guns. I haven't played this thing in a bit, so I wouldn't exactly know, but I personally find this vehicle to be better for doing the AA job. However, if you're looking for more anti-tank based, go to CCKW. Then you have stuff like the recently added French 105 Sherman. You also have the AMX-13 FL11, the M4A1 Sherman, and also the Leo 451 late bomber, which has a pretty formidable payload, let's just say. Now, for obvious reasons, you're going to want to like differentiate this lineup. You can change it. Obviously, you don't have to use the Leo, which for some reason does not have its 20mm. This is a turret anymore, even though it's back here. But you can effectively change these lineups to whatever you want. You could maybe go with, I don't know, the MB174, maybe one of the Potezers, the A35B. These lineups are meant to be changed so that you can have a specific purpose for them. These are your own personal opinions, although I find these lineups to be rather relaxing to play. So for Italy, we're back to 1.0, and we have the M1340 Series 3, the AB41, the M1340 Series 1, the L333 for the memes, and the BA65K14L. Pretty solid lineup. You've got the AB41, which has great mobility and a great gun. You've got the M1340s, which combine good armor and a good gun. You've then got the L333, which is just a meme. And you've got decent close air support with the BA65. Italy doesn't really have too much that you can employ down here, but if you stretch it up to 1.3, you can potentially bring the AS42 armored, well, I don't really want to call it an armored car, but you can use that AA car if you choose to. That's personally how I see it. Now for China, I actually was tossed between two lineups. This is the first one, 3.7. With China being at 3.7, you have access to the Chinese M4A4, the Chinese T-34, the Chinese Chaffee, the Chinese M10, and the Chinese Ki-61. These vehicles are very competitive. They have great characteristics. They have good versatility. You've got all the bases covered, and the Chinese Chaffee has scouting, which can also be a scout as well. Obviously, France does have the AMX, which is their scout vehicle, so just bear that in mind. But obviously, you've got versatility with the Ki-61. You've got the M10 as your tank destroyer, which can basically crack anything open at this tier. You've got the Chaffee. You've obviously got the T-34 to basically be like a pseudo heavy tank. You've then got a decent Sherman to back it up as well with that short stabilizer. These lineups, obviously, you can change, but here is the other lineup that I was considering, and that is China 1.0. The T-26 number 531, the T-26, MALAC, the I-15 Biz, and the Gladiator Mark 1. Unfortunately, with China, you don't have too much in terms of lower tier vehicles. However, if you do stretch it up to 1.3, you can bring along the Chiha, which has a punchy heat round. I quite like the Chiha personally. Although not a lot of people do, and I don't understand why. The Chiha has a very good tank, in my personal opinion. It's got a great gun depression and everything. If you are going to replace one of these two aircraft with the Chiha, I would personally go with the Gladiator, because the I-15 can carry rockets and light bombs if you need to. But obviously, this is your own personal opinion. I would personally bring along the Chiha and replace the Gladiator with it, but I just thought I'd put that example there so then you have a couple of ideas. So next one is Japan at 2.0. This lineup combines actually pretty effective vehicles, and people don't seem to realize it. When Japan actually came out, a lot of people looked at the tanks and thought, well, they're going to be crap. And I was like, they've got capability, I think. And sure enough, they do. You've got a tank such as the Chiha Kai, which is one of my favorite tanks. Fun fact. There's also the Honi 1 tank destroyer with its punchy 75mm. That's pretty effective. You've got the Hoei, so you can lob heat everywhere. Maybe will carry a couple of APHE if you need to. You've got the Taisei for your anti-aircraft, and for your fighter, well, close air support if you want to go that far, is the Ki-43-2. Obviously, you can change this to your own personal preference. There are other vehicles such as the J1N1, there's the Ki-32, the B5N2, which can actually carry an 800 kilogram bomb. I would not advise the H6K4, that thing is just a flying fuel tank, but even so. And with the bombs the Ki-43 can carry, it can basically kill anything as long as you land them sufficiently close. So this is a pretty effective lineup, I do have to say that. I've tested all these lineups, by the way. I took them out each, obviously after making them, and there's a reason why I'm sticking to 5 crew slots is because that is the maximum you can get without spending GE. And that just makes sense. So next up, Great Britain. I've decided to go with 1.3 for this. Obviously, you can notice I've got a couple of talismans. I seem to get talismans a lot with British tanks. Herifeet does the same, and yet he doesn't even play tanks. So we've got the Daimler AC Mark II armoured car, the A13 Mark 1 and 2, the Vickers Mark 6A AA, which is not a very good tank killer, but it's a sufficient AA for what you need, really. I mean, there are certainly better options. But if you do want to stretch it up to 1.7, you probably will want access to the A13 Mark II 1939. Then obviously you can chuck in the T17E2, but I don't personally recommend this. I think the Vickers Mark 6A AA is perfectly adequate. You just need to focus on shots on target. And then obviously for your aircraft, you have the V156B1, which has 4,000 rounds of 30 cal, a big 1,000 pound bomb, and a decent ray gunner with a Browning machine gun. And with the right belts, pretty punchy as well. So next up, USSR. We're back to 1.3, and we're starting off with stuff like the BT-7, the BT-5, the Su-5-1, which, I mean, you could replace it with something else, but I find this tank destroyer to be perfectly sufficient. The AA, you can really choose between two, and that's the Dishka Gaz AA, and also the 4M Gaz, which has the maximum machine guns. personal preference, whichever one. I prefer having at least a little bit of tank or anti-tank capability, and this thing does it. It has a 50 cal with access to 29mm of penetration with API-C rounds. However, this is personal preference. Then for your cast, we have one of my favorite attackers of all time, the BB-1. Very good, works as a fighter, quad Shikast in the front, a Shikast in the back, 600 kilograms of bombs, or you can take two 250s, which will nuke anything. Perfectly sufficient for this BR. That's all I really need to say. As for the extra tanks, you could probably trade it out for, I don't know. If you want to be a masochist, you could trade the SU-5 for the T-26, because the T-26 ain't as competitive nowadays. If you really want to be a masochist, you could put the T-26-4 in just for the memes, but I personally do not recommend that. That thing is crap. But it's personal preference. Now for Germany, this is basically a down-tiered clubbers lineup, because if you compare my clubbers lineup, which does need a change, I will admit that, it's basically a downgrade of the clubbers lineup that I use, even though I don't remember last time I took the clubbers out. We've got the Panzer IV-C, the Panzer II-F, the Flak Panzer, the HS-123 for your CAS, and a Panzer II-C. This lineup is pretty much unstoppable unless you start seeing B1 Bizzers. It's a very capable lineup, and with this aircraft having both dogfighting and bombing capabilities, there's really nowhere else to look in the early German tech tree unless you want to be a masochist and bring a DOE 17E1, which I don't recommend. And finally, we're at the US for 1.3 with the M3 Stuart, the M2A4 Stuart, the TBD Devastator, the M13 MGMC, and the M2 Medium. Now, personally, I would replace the M2 Medium with probably the LVT. At least with the LVT, you have crew survivability. The M2, whilst it has a lot of crew, doesn't take that into account. It doesn't really have much armor to protect it, and to be honest, no armor's best armor in the LVT anyway, so just see what you think of that. But I hope you enjoyed this little twist today. Like I say, I've been thinking about this for quite some time, and I wanted to get it out when Sweden comes out. And now that France got a 105 Sherman, I was able to make this lineup fully capable, shall we say. I've recently spaded the M4A3 105, so there's that as well. And obviously you get the heat, you get the HE, you get the smoke, and you get the smoke grenades. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little twist today. Hope you maybe try out some of these lineups that I've suggested. Maybe give me some suggestions in the comments or like changes that you would make. And well, I'll see you all on the next one.